Hello, everyone.
Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. This video is this video is called How to Get and this
The
question
topic.
is how to get an apartment in
Okay, so I
Canada.
have some questions here for Shanita. So the first question is, how old should you be when looking to rent an apartment?
So for this question I believe that the age would be probably 18 because that's pretty much like the legal age in Canada. Um, and it also depends on the landlord. Like if they will allow you to rent. Some landlords may have a requirement, like a stipulation or whatever, but some landlords may not care. So I think it depends on that, and also based on could possibly be based on your age, like the legal age.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. What websites can I use to look for an apartment?
Well, I can't really talk about a lot of websites. I can give my own story. So when I first moved to Canada as an adult, and I was going to school at George Brown College, I remember back then, they don't do it now. They used to do it all the time back then. It was a popular thing. People would put up apartments or rooms for rent. It was mostly rooms, not really apartment, but they would put rooms for rent all around the bus stops. Wherever you go at bus stops, you would see a bunch of rooms for rent, and they would have the number at the bottom with slips that you could just take off the slip, a slip of paper or whatever, and then you would call and ask questions about this room or whatever, and then that's it. So for my first home in Canada as an adult, um, that's what happened. We went around, me and my mom, because I was going to school, and my mom came with me to help me move and get myself settled. And we went around
Settled.
to different areas looking for a room, and I think we found a number at a shed. I think so, and that is how we ended up calling. Also, word of mouth, people might know people that might be renting as well. Another one was back then was Kijiji and Craigslist.
Oh, yeah.
Those ones, they also had like different websites as well. Very easy to pull up
Even
on
on
Google.
Facebook Marketplace as well.
Yeah, but Facebook Marketplace came more so towards like a little further.
No.
But when I first moved there in 2013, as an adult, because I gotta keep saying as an adult because we used to be living in Canada as children as well. But when I first moved, we ended up using that method, like just the ones at the bus shed, just tearing it, and also we asked people if they knew of people renting and so on and so forth.
Okay. Thank you. So, what are things I should consider when looking for an apartment?
Okay, so I can talk about the different. Okay, I'll talk about my story again. So when I first when I first was going into college, I wanted a room for rent. What was the question again?
What are things I should consider when looking for an
Right.
apartment?
So I wanted a room. For me personally, I just wanted somewhere to stay. I wasn't really too focused on furnishing my room, because for me it was a room, and my main goal was to go to school, study, and then move from where I was. Legit, that was my goal. So I know George Brown College and stuff had um like school housing and stuff like that, but back then the cheapest option was to look at the bus stop shed and to call around and ask. Back then people were renting rooms for like $300 and something. You can't get that for a room today. Not gonna happen.
Not in Toronto, at least.
Not in Toronto, but back then, like the rooms were like 360, 380, whatever. And I told my mother, like, I'm renting this room for school for now, And but as soon as school is finished, I want to move. So my mother, at first she wanted to like give me like some furnishings and stuff, but then I ended up telling her like no. The only thing I had was a mattress, literally. It was a apartment that had, I think, 2 rooms or something, or three rooms. And I was in one of the rooms. It was a pretty big room, but the only thing I had in the room was a mattress. I didn't buy any type of furnishing because in my head I knew I wanted to move. So that's where that was. And then the second, after college, and I got my little first job and stuff.
And she was getting rich.
I wasn't getting rich. I don't know where she got that from. So I got my first job, and then from my room, I moved to a basement apartment. And of course, my mom was there again to help me move. She would travel frequently to help me out whenever I needed it. And so she came to help me transition from living in a room to living in a basement apartment. And the fortunate thing was I didn't have furnishing, so I didn't have to move stuff from here to here. We didn't have a vehicle, nothing. So all we did was just walk around and look for a basement apartment, and we were looking for a furnished basement apartment. So it's something that already had furniture or whatever already. The only thing I think my mother ended up getting was like a table and chairs, I think, that we brought into the basement apartment. And the basement was basically the bottom of a house, and it was completely furnished. It had a kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom, and a little bit of a living room area. It wasn't overly big, but it was like nice. It was my own, and it had its own separate entrance as well. So I didn't have to like bother the people who lived at the top that was renting the basement to me. And then I also had access to their washing and drying as well. But yeah, so it was like my first home, and it was an amazing experience having my first home to call my own, even though it was just a basement apartment. And then from the basement apartment, I keep looking at the question. From the basement apartment, I moved to my apartment, and what I was looking for in my actual apartment now was, first and foremost, not somewhere that was a sky race, because, or a high race or whatever, because I did not want, I call it a sky race. I did not want to be up in the air. Unfortunately, when I was living in the place where I had the room, and it was in an apartment building, I lived on the 11th floor, and we had a fire. And I think that not in the apartment I was in, but on the floor, like on the bottom floor, I think had
second floor.
Had a fire, but it affected like right up. And I believe, I think they said that the woman that lived next door to me, next door to the apartment that I was in, they said that she died because she ran down the stairs and unfortunately has smoke inhalation and everything. But yeah, after that experience, when I was looking for my apartment, it was a no go. The first apartment I remember I was looking at was a high rise, and they wanted me to go on the 20th floor. So they said, nope, not gonna happen. So after that, I started looking for low rise apartments. So yeah, I was looking for something with a lot of room, a lot of cupboards, a lot of sunlight, and yeah, I'm happy with the apartment. And then I was so fortunate to get some place too that had a really great environment. There was lots of parks. There were a lot of trees, a lot of fresh air. Tony laughing, but that's important, okay? That's important for your health. So that's what we and that's the apartment I'm in today. I've been here for about 7 years, I believe. I've been in this apartment for 7 years. It was not furnished. I had to bring my own furniture, but again, I didn't have to bring much because I just brought whatever I had in my basement apartment over here. and we added stuff to it as the years went by. We kind of added a little bit here and there, or whatever. And it's a great apartment. It's a low rise, as I said, so there are only four
Floors.
yeah, and and the people are really nice. My neighbors are very nice and very helpful as well. I've never had an issue while living here, pretty much. So
What I would like to add to is that you try to get an apartment close to where the TTC
right,
is.
I
You
forgot
could
that
be
part.
able to catch your bus and stuff, but you don't want that you gotta walk a mile and a quarter,
Right.
pun intended. But yes, you don't want to end up walking so long to get a bus. So that's also something that you should consider when getting an apartment.
Correct. And that's a very big point Tony made, because I forgot to say that as well. Where we live, we're literally central to everything. So we are in such a great area that we can get downtown. We can go up to North here if we need. We can go. We're very close to Etobicoke, very close to Mississauga, we're very close to the airport, and we love to travel, so that's a plus. Um, we're also very close to another area we're close to. We're pretty much close to everything. We're just central.
Yeah, we close to get any goals, the GO train.
Yeah, the GO train, the TDC, whatever.
Yeah.
So.
All right. What is a good price range for an apartment in Toronto?
Honestly, like, the apartments in Toronto now are ridiculous. The pricing for the apartments now are ridiculous. So
$2,000.
to say it was a good price range, whatever you can afford. I think that when I first started to look for so for me, like I said, for my room, I was paying, like, when I first got the room, I was paying like 360 or 370 or something like that. For my basement apartment, I was paying like 800 a month. And then when I first moved into my apartment, I was paying like 1,000 a month. And then obviously as years go by, it goes up, it goes up, it goes up. But what I have to say is that after COVID, I feel like people start to really take advantage of people, and the cost of renting was ridiculous. Like, people were renting spaces to students and other people, having like four people in three people in a room, or two people in one room, or like, it was over the top. And the pricing, like, you're sharing a room. You don't even have your room to yourself. You are sharing a room with somebody else, and you're paying 500, pretty much 500 for a bed. Was ridiculous. Like, I was blown away at, because in my mind I'm like, whoa, that, like, I had a room for 300 and something, and it was my room.
Right.
So imagine sharing a room and you're paying $500 each. Ridiculous. So people were really at what's the word?
They were exploiting.
Right. But that was not the word I was looking for though. But they were really overdoing it. But yeah, and then after COVID, people really started to, like, raise the prices of rent up to like $2,000, $3,000 a month, especially downtown.
Yeah.
And what I learned also was that the newer buildings, when you go to the newer buildings, the ones that don't really have a rent cap, or I think that's what you call it, you can rent that apartment for 1,500, and then the landlord could decide within, like, to renew your contract or your lease or whatever. They might decide, oh, they want you to pay like 2,500 or something, without any, you know, type of, without any type, because they can just do it. But when you go to, like, certain buildings now, the older buildings, I think, have a right cap where they can't increase it over the top. Then you're kind of safe in that way. So I think that is also something to look for. Like when you're looking for an apartment, maybe try looking for an older building. It might come with some issues or whatever, but at least you know that when you rent, it's time for the rent to increase. You don't have to be worried that you have to pay this exorbitant price that they're just making up at the top of their head. You know, at least you know that you have some sense of stability where that increase is not over the top. So I think that's one of the important things when looking at the price range for an apartment. But to be honest, now going into apartment, I don't see anybody renting anybody an apartment like mine. My apartment is huge. I don't really see anybody renting an apartment like mine for $1,000 or anything like that today. It's not gonna happen.
Okay. And then the final question is, what is the difference between a furnished and an unfurnished apartment?
Okay, so as I said before, when I first moved to the room, it was unfurnished. When I moved to the basement apartment, it was furnished. And when I moved to my apartment, it was unfurnished. So, unfurnished basically means that it doesn't have any furniture. It might have a bed or something. The room I had like a mattress. That was it. But most of the time, it has nothing. And then that gives you a chance to be creative and you know put your mark on your apartment or whatever, and um, just buy your own stuff and decorate how you want to decorate. But furnish now, it's coming with their um, their stuff, which means that the pro in that is that you don't have to spend money on things. The most you might buy is a bed or something, but you might have a couch, you might have things in the kitchen or whatever. You'll have different furniture in the apartment. You don't really have to buy anything. Most furnished apartments come with a bed as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yes.
But overall, what I would say about my whole experience in getting apartments and stuff, I would say it was a pretty good experience, and I was fortunate enough to come at a time where things were not overly expensive and people were not trying to take advantage of people. So yeah, I don't know if Tony have anything to add.
I have nothing to add.
She has nothing to add because she's been very fortunate to be able to come at her sister whenever she came to visit, and then after she decided to move to Canada, she didn't have to go through the process of getting an apartment. Look at her. Look at her.
Well, what I would say is that I will move out, get an apartment, and then come back and tell me how I found it.
Unbelievable.
Because certainly I will be moving back in.
You'll be moving back in before 2 weeks.
Before 2 weeks.
You won't even last 2 weeks.
But then will last a day with the prices you got. But anyways, that's just a little joke. But yes. So we're thankful to Shanita for letting us know how it was for her in renting an apartment. I know it can be very difficult trying to find something to call your own, and it's home away from home basically. So at least we're able to share this with you, because thank God Shanita moved up here 12 years ago, because if it was now, we would have it kind of rough, yeah. Right? So still grateful that it is not as rough as others
are experiencing.
And then it's only where we live, like Toronto side, but there are other places that could give you rent for like 1,300. It's based on the location. It's always based on the location. Toronto is the city, so obviously city prices are going to be higher than the country prices basically. So these are things to consider too. Remember, Canada is a humongous place, and you can go wherever you want to go. We're just speaking about Toronto itself, right? So
yeah, and what I would say is that Ontario in itself is pretty expensive when it comes to housing. it's very expensive. And I find a lot of people tend to flock to Toronto because it's well known.
Right.
But there are a lot of other areas in Canada, there are a lot of other provinces that might not be as developed, and you might be able to get a nice apartment for a cheaper price.
Right.
Because not a lot of people have gone there yet.
Right.
Because people tend to flock to popular areas. So you'll hear about Toronto, you'll hear about Vancouver, you'll hear about British Columbia, you'll hear about, those are the areas that people flock to a lot.
Right.
And because of that, the prices
skyrocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all about, if you have an open mind and you decide to come and venture into the unknown of one of the provinces that might not be so popular. So yeah.
So leave us a comment letting us know your take on what we said today, and please continue to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time,
bye.